I'm Susan Whitmore, founder and president of griefHaven. Today we're going to talk about the second greatest grief myth of all and the problems it causes for people who are in grief. It is that there are 5 stages of grieving. In other words, that there are 5 nice, neat, linear stages of grief that you need to go through in order to be done with grief. In having conversations or in my private work or even in grief groups, people will say to me, "Oh, I think I'm stuck in the stage of denial," or "Oh, I think I'm stuck in the stage of acceptance. I just can't seem to accept that this person is gone." There are no stages to grieving. What people are talking about when they're talking about the 5 stages of grieving is something that started with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was an amazing woman who did so much for dignity in dying. And she did a lot of research working with people who knew they were going to die and watching what they went through until they came to a point just before their deaths. She came up with these stages that most people seem to experience until they get to a point of accepting that the inevitable is coming. Here's what the stages are that Kubler-Ross came up with. Remember that she in no way meant for these to be the only things that people go through who are dying. This is what she experienced with the majority of people. Somehow that has been taken and put onto grief. People like to talk about the fact that when we lose someone we love and we're in this kind of pain, we're going to go through these various stages. Part of the myth is that people even believe if they don't go through every stage, that they didn't grieve properly and it might come back on them. She said, "On Death and Dying was never a study of grief and bereavement. It was a discussion of some key emotional reactions to the experience of the dying. Yes, grief was a part of that experience, but it was not the totality of the experience." So in other words, what she's saying is that her work with death and dying does not cross over into stages of grieving. We know that grieving is messy business. None of us are ever prepared for it. Even if we've had losses before, each loss is so unique, and each relationship with that person is so unique, that each loss brings different kinds of experiences with it. I will often have people tell me, "I don't know what's happening to me. When my mother died, I wasn't this bad." It's because your relationship with your mother was most likely very different than your relationship with the previous person who died. But for people who have never experienced grief at all, the grieving process can be very shocking and very disturbing and very confusing. It doesn't start at A and go across to B. Life doesn't work that way. Grief certainly doesn't work that way. Grief is like a roller coaster ride, up and down and all around, and you can take 10 steps forward and 5 steps backward, and this can go on for the rest of your life. Not in the most intense way that it does in the very beginning, of course, but there will always be triggers. There will always be times that you'll miss that person. And so even in my situation, it's been 13 years since Erica died. I will have triggers every once in a while, especially around the holidays when everyone's getting together and the families are getting together. And I might just have a moment where it just hits me. What we want to make sure that we impart is that there are no stages. So you can just throw that out the window right now, calm down, educate everyone you know, and as you go through your own grief journey, you need to give yourself permission to feel everything you feel, and you learn how to incorporate the grief into your life. So now we've dispelled grief myth number 2. There are no stages to grief. Nice, neat, linear stages. Wouldn't that be wonderful if that's all we had to do and then we were done? Now you know. Grief myth number 2, there are no stages to grief.
Shower the people you love with love. Show them the